Yeah. Um, JW Change, actually, he has a whole lot of plugins. They all should be part of Finale. They're so good. They're so necessary, and the lack of these tools in native Finale or even the native plugins is just it's just shameful, honestly. Make music, y'all really need to pay attention to this guy, Jari, and fucking hire him, please. Hire him, give him lots of money for him basically having made your software that much more actually usable. Um, so anyway, I'll go into more JW plugins at some point, I'm sure, because there's a lot of them. I don't even use all of them very much, but um, JW1 here, these are just ones that are not tested to be stable on my particular version, but they tend to work anyway. Anyway, where was I? I think I was just going through. I think I was going to do. I was going to do accidentals, courtesy accidentals, and other things like that, and I got distracted by more music spacing. I'll just have to sort of see it as it comes and keep my eye out for music spacing, these notes, as I go along, because there's a few of them that are. No, that one's okay. Again, the Finale is just, it's such a powerful program, and I honestly like using it now. I've been using it for a long time, and part of me just likes using it because I'm used to it, and I know how to do things super fast. And there's something sort of rewarding about understanding all the quirks of a piece of software. But I don't blame other people for really, really being annoyed by it, and I'm super annoyed by it too. Okay, so this has been a point of contention for me and my client and maybe some other people, the appropriateness of parentheses or brackets, if you're a Brit, around accidentals. My practice, more or less in line with Gould. If you don't know what Gould is, if you are an engraver or any kind of music professional that involves software, get your hands on Behind Bars by Elaine Gould. It is kind of a Bible. It's a good reference point to start with, and if you want to go different from what Gould recommends, it's good to know what she recommends, because everything in that book is very intended to be sort of universally applicable principles that you can use to apply to your engraving. Because when it comes down to it, there are no correct answers with engraving. For me, the principles are consistency and clarity. And you always have to be sensitive of your audience and who's going to be looking at this and what the circumstances are. In any case, I personally hate brackets around these things. They are unnecessary clutter. As an engraver, I see them take up a bunch of extra side-to-side horizontal space, especially if you one by itself, no big deal, but if you put them all on a cord, it just makes that measure huge and annoying, and I hate them. Now, there are uses for them. I like having parentheses in the cases of augmented intervals that sound different from how they look, such as an augmented third, between, let's say, an F natural and a G sharp. In that case, I would put a parentheses around the F natural next to the G sharp to show that this, hey, yes, this is actually meant to be flat or natural. It looks like a second, but it sounds like a third. Those are useful. Basically, in my philosophy, parentheses are there for when you don't actually need that thing there. It's like, hey, I'm just being nice. You don't need this, but this is here. Now, in my opinion, when you have cross relations between hands, the piano is one instrument. So, the pianist has one brain, even though their pianist hands do often have somewhat minds of their own sometimes. My general principle with piano is that, if you have a flat in the left hand, you need to cancel it in the right hand. It's not optional. You need to show the cross relation, even though technically, on the most dry technical way, you don't need it. And also technically, after the bar line, you don't need to restate or cancel an accidental. My opinion is that they're just necessary. The players expect them. The players will get confused if you don't have a cancellation or a confirmation of accidentals in a lot of cases, and So in my opinion, they're necessary, and putting parentheses around them implies that they're unnecessary, which I don't like to imply. So they're also useful in music that has key signatures. If you suddenly change key signatures, the first few notes in the new passage, sometimes it's nice to put parentheses around those, whatever they are, whatever changed. Like if you had 3 flats and you're suddenly in 2 flats, and you can put a natural on the A with the parentheses around it, just to be like, hey, yeah, remember it's an A natural now. You know, we don't need this, but hey, just in case, we're going to be nice. So anyway, so I'm going through and just doing a quick little eyeball. Now, actually, what I do, and I'm not going to have the playback here because I actually don't want general audience to know who my client is, at least not through this video, and I don't want to have music I don't own play on my channel, so I don't think this will play. But a really good way to tell if you have a good ear when you need courtesy or cautionary accidentals is just to play it back. Wait, actually, no, that does play back because you hear it in my speakers, don't you? Okay, I'm going to pause it. Here we go. Okay, as I was saying, a really nice way to check for courtesy accidentals is just to listen to it. Listen to MIDI playback. And if you have a developed ear, you can generally get the sense of when a passage is more or less diatonic. You know, it sounds like it's in a key. And a lot of this particular composer's music modulates a lot, but has sections that feel very sort of diatonic or modal in a particular key space. Except when it doesn't, obviously. But anyway, one place that I think is kind of open up for opinions on this is here at measure 16. You can see how the tonality suddenly changes to more of an E major feel. Actually, more of a it's got an A sharp in there, so it's actually kind of an E Lydian feel. Although I hate Greek modes, but that's kind of how it describes it. Anyway, from context, in the right hand, you can see obviously there's sharps in the chord. You're usually not going to have sharps and flats in the same chord unless it's diminished or some other odd, non-diatonic thing going on. And so I would say, as a pianist, I would intuitively look at that, and even if the B is flat in the previous measure, I would see that and automatically assume a B natural. I sort of tend to like to put them in anyway. Again, I'm kind of thinking about who's going to be playing this. I want to make life easy for the accompanist. Now, if this were an orchestral piano part, where I know the person is going to be spending a lot of time, ideally, kind of woodshedding the piece, you know, maybe it's not quite as necessary to be super nice to the orchestral piano part as you would to an accompanist. And that might not be a distinction that's even worth making, but it's just interesting to think about. In this case, I'm basically erring on the side of caution in terms of making the music really easy to read, at the same time as not being too cluttered. So anyway, so this is all good. Now here in measure 19, actually I'm discovering a notational thing that that I forgot before, which is, here's another thing. This may just be a personal taste thing, but I don't like having a chord and another chord with only one of the notes tied, or not all of the notes tied. It just doesn't immediately tell me what's happening. So what's important here is that the B is held and the G sharp the G is not held. There are a lot of ways one can do this, can change this to make this more clear. You could put an upstem. In this case, one would put an upstem dotted eighth on this B. Let's see what that looks like. So actually, so while I'm at it, I might as well talk about how to put different voices in a staff. Now, as you may know, there are two basic ways to put multiple voices. Actually, there's kind of three ways to put multiple voices in a staff, but the two ones that I use the most are layers, which are down at the bottom here, and voices. And layers and voices are different, although they often have the same effect. A voice is within a layer, and in general, a voice does not default to having rests in the entire measure. So if I were to do this in layer 2, which I could do, actually first let me remove the that B. Whoops. You have to make sure you're right on there. Right on that B. So that here is the important line, G to the G sharp, but we want to put a B in there that we want the pianist to hold over, at least through this G sharp. This may not seem super important. I would personally not even bother with it, but I'm not going to fight the client on this one. I'm just going to, because some clients, they're very specific, and that's fine. Sometimes they really like to get into minutia of things, and that can be fun. So the sort of maybe slightly more obvious way to put another voice in here would be with layers. So I can switch to layer 2 with Control, so Alt Shift 2. Now I'm in layer 2, and you can see with speedy entry, layer 1 is ghosted out. And so I have my MIDI keyboard attached, so I'm going to press the B on the keyboard, which you can't see, and that's too low. So I need to put that higher. There we go. Now, obviously there's an issue with the up and down stems. That's not hard to fix. You go to Edit. No, it's Edit and Utilities, by the way. I can never keep track of what's in what. And I have a keyboard shortcut for this anyway, so but move and copy layers. And actually, a quick thing, if you don't have keyboard shortcuts, you can still get to things really fast. And I did this for a long time, at least on PCs. I press the Alt key, and you see how all those little at the top are now they have a little underline under their hotkeys. So I can press the Alt key and press L for utilities, or I can press the Alt key and press E for edit. And now I can press the V key. As you can see, move copy layers has V underline. So if I press V, it'll bring that up. So super fast, Alt E V. And in fact, I've actually programmed Shift Alt V through TG Tools to get me this. Does that work? No. Shift Alt. What was it? I might have this turned off. It's turned off. Huh. Menu current. It's in edit. Huh? Whatever. I'll have to figure that out later. Oh, there it is. Okay, so you just move 1 and 2 into each other. Here's another nice thing that Finale got in a recent version was it now knows that if you move layer 1 into 2 and 2 into layer 1, it knows now that you just want to trade them. And anybody who's gotten into programming, computer programming, knows that the trading problem is such that if you need to switch the contents of two boxes or 2 variables, in this case 2 layers, you actually need a third one. You move A out of B into your temporary area, and then you move B into A, and then you move A from your temporary area into B. It used to be that you had to do that in Finale because it would basically process these one by one. It would move layer 1 into layer 2, erase layer 2, and then try to move the now empty layer 2 into layer 1. Thankfully, it gets it right now. But again, the problem here, if we use layers, is that we have all these dumb rests that we don't want to. We're now in layer 1, because by default, Finale will have layer 1 up-stemmed and layer 2 down-stemmed. I could go through and hide all of these. You do that with H in speedy entry, and I think simple entry, you just press H. Now I'm out of that. That looks nice. That kind of works. But I want to do it the right way, or the way that requires less work, even though I'm actually making more work now. And that is to use voices. So when you're in speedy entry, and I think speedy is the only way to do voices, you press the apostrophe key, and you see how